Good evening. I'm Rob Watton, Chair of the Public Safety Committee, and I call this meeting to order. It is 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. on Monday, July 6, 2026. You get the opportunity of viewing this again online through the city's website, and everything will be recorded. With that, I want to note that for the record, that all council members are present, Councilmember Cotton, Councilmember Tessman, and myself, as well as staff. Thank you so much for being here on a FIFA evening. We're all excited for a big USA win in Seattle, but it's also really telling that you spend your night here before going back home and watching the game, because I think that we're all concerned about making sure that we keep our community safe. And there's no better committee to make sure that that happens than public safety. So good evening with that. Very first thing, and that's the approval of the agenda before you. One note, the public that is here tonight, you have a copy of the first draft of our ordinance, the best risk mitigation ordinance that I'm proposing. This is a bit unusual because normally it doesn't come through a council member, it comes through staff. But in researching this, and in part to your involvement, it becomes rather apparent to many of us that we need to address this head on. So with that, is there any? Oh, and once we're done, we will have this draft available publicly. But keep in mind, I could not send this out individually to you because that would be a violation of the Open Public Meeting Act. And we have to do this in the state of Washington in the public view. And in fact, we as council members did not have a chance to deliberate outside of this open meeting. So this is the first time this committee is taking this underway. So with that, do I have an approval for tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any changes to the agenda?
I'd like to add some topics for discussion, but I think I can do that towards the end if you'd prefer.
We may have additional topics at the end, yes, but we do want to make sure that if people have comments, that we give them that opportunity tonight. So
then I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to include items for discussion and potential future discussion pending on time limits. One is that we brought up before, evacuation routes.
Okay.
And some of our continued input and trying to continue to get some information on the BRIC program, building resilient infrastructure communities, and some of the funding available with that. I'm assuming the mayor is not going to be here tonight.
That is correct.
So I won't be able to get his feedback on what he's done with that since he took it out of my hands. But I will follow up on that. The other item is to get it back into our radar on public safety is the King County's Opioid Abatement Council and the settlement funds that our city has received, which by the end of this year will tally a significant amount. And we were in the process of getting our council formed.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else that?
Andre, anything?
Okay.
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Tessman and Councilmember Cotton. I've added those 3 items to the end, and if we don't have enough time tonight, we will absolutely make sure it's on our next agenda. So with that, if there's no objection, we'll accept the agenda as amended. And with that, I'm going to open it up for public comments. I presume that most everyone here, if you want to speak on BESS, we will absolutely let you do that. But if you're here for any other reason, on public safety. This is a time for you to step forward. By the way, Andrew, do you have the 3-minute button or is that up here?
Oh, is that it over there?
Or we could set a timer.
It's good because it goes with the, okay,
Well, this is the control panel. It's not the speaker light, unless that's up there.
it's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andrew, can you move from there up to be promoted to the front of the room? Okay, so if anybody would like to speak on anything other than Bess, you're welcome to do that at this time. Otherwise, I'm going to allow up to 3 minutes talking about Bess. You're addressing the council committee as a whole, not as individuals. And just with that, would anybody like to make any statements? Please step forward. So please give us your name, your residence, and that's it. And your remarks, please.
Chair Wharton, Council Member Cotton and Testman, thank you for your work on the Public Safety Committee. My name is Nivedita and I'm a Snoqualmie resident now of over 14 years. Approximately 25 minutes into your June 15, 2026 meeting, a handout was circulated to inform the committee's discussion on BESS. Chair Wharton appropriately referenced other jurisdictions that have taken a closer look at the risk associated with these facilities. We have not been able to find that attached handout in the minutes of the meetings or included in tonight's agenda packet or posted on the city website. So just a quick note.
Okay, just clarification. What exactly were we supposed to post?
So there was a handout that was circulated in the June 15th meeting. So if we can look that up, that would be great. Thank you.
Well noted.
We also heard Chair Wharton invite ideas on how the city can mitigate the risk associated with BESS. We appreciate that invitation, and I'm here tonight with many of the Snoqualmie residents in response to Chair Wharton's invitation to collaborate on addressing these risks. First, Chair Wharton is absolutely right to highlight the importance of robust financial protections, including bankruptcy safeguards, insurance requirements, ongoing maintenance obligations, and decommissioning plans. Entities that profit from these facilities should be required to stand behind them throughout their entire life cycle. Second, Councilman Cotton is right to emphasize the need for expertise from our city staff. Our fire department should help develop emergency response plans for potential BESS fires, while our police department should be involved in planning for timely evacuations in any such event. Third, Councilmember Testman is right in improving evacuation routes remains a critical public safety priority for Snoqualmie Valley. As the flooding we experienced in December and March, even one, let alone 3 of our major roads were underwater, residents face significant challenges reaching hospitals, returning homes, or evacuating safely. We share your concern. We applaud your willingness to pass a resolution prompting enhancements to King County Ordinance 19824, along with other cities. Among potential cities willing to join your recommendation for King County are North Bend, Carnation, Duval, and Covington. As you consider recommendations to strengthen the Ordinance 19824, we respectfully offer several specific requests and provisions. First, require any BESS facility to be located at least 1,000 feet from any residential property, measured from the nearest point of each parcel boundary. This standard has been adopted in Rancho Cucamonga, California, and is particularly appropriate for communities like ours, where more than 1/3 of residents are under the age of 18 and therefore more vulnerable to potential toxic chemical exposures. As the US Environmental Protection Agency reminds us, children are not little adults.
Thank you very much. If you have further comments that you want to submit to the city clerk, please do so. Next, please. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Evening hours already. Chair Wharton, Council Members Cotton and Testman, thank you for your public safety leadership. My name is Henrika Stitch. I'm a Snoqualmie Ridge resident. And like my neighbor, Navedita, I offer a recommendation for regulatory enhancements. Require that any bus be set back at least 2 miles from any school or daycare facility. Children's highly permeable skin and less effective filtration in nasal passages make them particularly vulnerable to chemical exposure, according to the EPA. In the area where pollution trapping conditions occur 232 days out of 336 days with data, the toxic plume that a BESS emits could be held close to our valley ground, which means that a mere 1,000 feet from a hydrogen fluoride spewing burning BESS isn't enough to protect our children. According to a published study, burning lithium batteries emit toxins including between 20 and 200 milligrams of hydrogen fluoride per watt hour of battery capacity. Based on that study's findings, if a 780 megawatt hour BESS burns, it could emit between 15,600 kilograms and 155,000 kilograms of toxic hydrogen fluoride. For the school children who do not wear protective gear, acute exposure guideline levels for airborne chemicals apply. Set by the EPA, the acute exposure guideline levels assess the concentration of a chemical. An average person not wearing protective gear can be exposed to over 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 4 hours, and 8 hours. According to EPA, if only 24 parts are hydrogen fluoride per million, and a person is exposed for 60 minutes or more, it will cause irreversible or other serious long-lasting adverse health effects or impaired ability to escape. In January 2025, Morris Landing burning BESS forced an evacuation of 1,200 residents from 8 square miles because children are so sensitive to toxic chemicals like those that a burning BESS emits. We need to give them time to get away. I don't know if I have any more time or not.
I'll take your written written statement.
A third suggestion for regulatory enhancement is setting health protections around the noise levels we allowed near the schools that allow near the schools and homes. Since 1974, Americans have recognized that the sound pollution harms human health. I have some more, but
Thank you. Next, please. And again, if you have written comments, I'm more than willing to take those and put them into the record. Thank you. Appreciate all the work and input. Yes, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Watton, Council Members Cotton and Testman. Can you hear me? Thank you for your work. My name is Jessica Moylan. I'm a Snoqualmie resident of 2 years. Considering how BESS externalities like noise harm everyone leads to my first suggestion, require independently verified data. Independent expertise should be required for any assertion about spontaneous combustion, toxic plumes, public health, or environmental impacts. Our community has been surprised by how often King County representatives have accepted developer assertions as facts without looking at the underlying data. Recently, we saw that Jupiter Power had failed to disclose that part of its proposed BESS project falls within the city of Snoqualmie in its SEPA checklist. That's a big omission. It's also about something that we can see when we look at their map and our map. Seeing how toxic chemicals deployed experimentally will impact our homes requires specialized equipment and specialized knowledge. That specialized information should be given to us by someone without a profit motive. If we cannot trust Jupiter Power to honestly report where its project falls on a map, how can we trust them to honestly report on chemicals and their impacts? No entity profiting from proposed projects should be given the benefit of the doubt about public safety. Similarly, I suggest that before any emerging hazards like BESS are built, we set up a framework for independent monitoring and testing with public reporting. We should require independent monitoring and testing of BESS safety systems, impacts on the environment, and safety drill response times. We should publicly report on the monitoring and tests and require remediation payment paid for the companies by profiting from the BESS. We have all seen industrial tragedies when independent monitoring doesn't happen. No family should lose loved ones because of a foreseeable industrial failure. We should require companies profiting from this BESS, PSE and Jupiter to fund independent government scientists who test the facility and surrounding conditions, report on what they find, and require prompt remediation when issues arise. These monitoring and reporting processes, along with the requisite taxes to pay for them, should be established before any BESS is permitted. As an example, New York City requires city fire department inspections of BESS fire alarms, water spray systems, and firefighter and equipment access drills. Additionally, New York City proposed rules that would require BESS like this to have monitoring systems meeting international cybersecurity standards. Snoqualmie and King County should require no less. Families in Snoqualmie Valley support safety regulations in our sports leagues, on our roads, and in our parks. Why should industrial lithium-ion BESS be any different? Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, Chairman Watson, Councilperson Cotton, and Councilmember Tessman. My name is Jim Chesfold, and like our neighbors, I appreciate the chance to share suggestions for enhancements to the safety requirements for BESS. Let's be clear that a battery energy storage system for a house or car that uses single type of energy storage system technology, such as all lead acid, all lithium ion, carries some risk, but requires different testing, monitoring, and emergency responses than do industrial BESS facilities. Cities like Veteran, New York recognized this when they passed an ordinance permitting BESS with capacity of less than or equal to 80 kilowatt hours. I appreciate chairpersons, excuse me, Watton's observation that different sizes of BESS require different financial assurances, and suggest that we consider setting tiers for personal use and for commercial or industrial use. As context, the U.S. Energy Information Administration categorizes utility scale BESS as those with 1 megawatt of net generation capacity. 1 average megawatt is equal to the power of 800 homes in Washington State. According to Puget Sound Energy representative, a 1 megawatt lithium ion battery can fit inside of 1 shipping container. No 1 megawatt BESS is, so that's pretty large, but it isn't the kind of thing that most of us considered to be usual yard ornamentation. Because U.S. Information Administration data from 2022 reflects average household electricity use of about 30 kilowatt hours a day, setting the personal use limit around 80 kilowatt hours makes sense. That could power a home through a day or two when PSE services fail. Tesla cars range in battery capacity from 50 to 100 kilowatt hours. Tesla Powerwall product holds a standard energy capacity of 13.5 kilowatt hours per unit. Please consider setting 100 kilowatt hours as the limit for personal or residential use. Please also consider the next tier as between 100 kilowatt hours and 1 megawatt hour, which could support small business and commercial use. We don't want our restaurants and groceries to lose their inventory when PSE fails to deliver power. For batteries over 1 megawatt hour, please set utility level regulations and requirements. While between 1 and 5 megawatt hours in size may be on the small side from an industrial side, they are the distributed energy resource that PSE representatives claim PSE needs for utility operations.
Thank you. Would you have a copy of your
Yes,
of your report. I'd really like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
I
you.
could just put it here.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well done. Appreciate it. Thank you. Good evening.
Chairperson Watson, can I say it right? Council member. Okay, it was Watton.
You're good.
Testman, thank you for the work you're doing for safety for our community. I really appreciate it. My name is Sue Vergao. I've lived here in Snoqualmie 15 years. And I have a little more to say along the lines that James was doing about improving our best regulations. I really appreciate your willingness to consider this. Like James, I suggest that we consider safety regulations tiered by size of the potential facility and the potential damage it can do. A lithium iron BESS that has 5 megawatt hours of capacity has the capacity to emit considerable harm. According to a published study, burning lithium batteries emit toxins including between 20 and 200 milligrams of hydrogen fluoride per hour of battery capacity. Based on that study's findings, if a 5 megawatt hour lithium iron battery burns, it emits between 100 and 1,000 kilograms of hydrogen fluoride. 1,000 kilograms of hydrogen fluoride is about the size of a grand piano, considerable and potentially harmful to anything nearby. Please consider anything larger than a 5 megawatt hour BESS to be potentially high consequence. According to the nuance that James brings to this conversation, I also suggest that we consider excluding pumped storage hydropower facilities from this framework. The harms we're seeking to prevent are those from experimental BESS like lithium ion. Other forms of energy storage like pumped storage, hydropower don't present the same risk profile. Pumped storage hydropower, or PSH, pumps or diverts water into a higher reservoir when energy demand is low, releases the stored water into a lower reservoir to power a turbine and generate energy when the demand is high. Colloquially known as a water battery, PSH can deliver energy for over 8 hours. PSH is truly green from construction through its 50 to 100 years of operation. It will have negligible greenhouse gas emissions over its life. Industrial regulations are required for PSH too, but we suggest that regulations treat their risk differently because they are completely different technologies with different risk profiles. To recap our proposed BESS tiers, which exclude PSE, residential BESS would be less than 100 kilowatt hour capacity. Commercial BESS would be between 100 kilowatt hour and 1 megawatt hour capacity. Distributed energy sources would be BESS between 1 and 5 megawatt hour capacity. And any BESS over 5 megawatt hour capacity would be high consequence.
Thank you. Do you have a copy for me as well? Thank you very much. Next, please. Please.
Okay. Good evening, Chairperson Wooten, Councilman Cotton, and Councilman Tessman. My name is Butch Vision, and like our neighbors, I am grateful for your work. I also have suggestions for improvement for BESS safety regulations. As Councilmember Tessman acutely observed, we need ways to evacuate from hazards like a burning BESS. We have limited ways to leave the Snoqualmie Valley. During the 22 days of flooding in December, our lives were curtailed because roads were closed and some of us were endangered by flooding. 62 businesses reported flood damage to the King County Flood Control District. The King County Flood Control District estimated emergency repair cost of $3 million and projected 2026 recovery cost of $7.3 million. We are still helping neighbors clean up and rebuild from those floods. Even without floods washing out or closing roads, our valley lacks roads. Our residents are driving on fewer roads than King County itself thinks we need. King County's own study of 4 cross-valley bridges found that they flood almost every year, and neither road raising nor an alternative bridge site is in the county's 5-year plan. If the bridges flood and the BESS burns, there is one way out. According to Washington State Department of Transportation historic annual average daily traffic data, between 12,000 and 13,000 vehicles use the 2-lane road on a normal day. During an emergency evacuation, it is possible that most of Snoqualmie Valley residents would be competing for the exact same road, which is State Road 202. According to King County Flood Control District's report, State Road 202 upstream of Falls City was at risk of overtopping during Phase 4 conditions. That means the single road remaining out of Snoqualmie in that direction was already at risk of going underwater. We appreciate your thoughtful approach and suggest requiring independent, verified, actionable evacuation plans as a condition of any BESS permit in King County. A licensed engineer acting on behalf of King County and its residents should be required to certify at least 2 distinct all-weather evacuation routes that exist for every resident in our valley before Jupiter Power's BESS or a similar industrial facility could be approved. This is important because hydrogen fluoride and other chemicals and heavy metals emitted by a burning BESS are so hazardous to humans. If a person is exposed to 22 parts per million of hydrogen fluoride for 4 hours, they are likely to experience life-threatening health effects or death. Thank you.
Thank you much. And next. So this group is better than AI. A tremendous amount of information. Appreciate it.
Chairperson Watton, Council Members Cotton and Testman, thank you for your work so much. My name is Heidi Stauber, and I've lived here in Snoqualmie for 17 years. And like our neighbors, I'm concerned about BESS safety. My suggestion concerns what happens to the water used to keep fire from spreading. When firefighters flood the area around a burning lithium-ion battery, that runoff does not simply disappear. A peer-reviewed study published in Environmental Pollution this January measured the water running off lithium-ion battery fires and found fluoride at 6 milligrams per liter, more than 3 times the freshwater ecosystem protection guideline of 1.7 milligrams per liter, together with aluminum, copper, manganese, and nickel, each above freshwater safety thresholds. Separate published testing found that the foams and waters used to suppress these fires can carry per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which are known as the forever chemicals, rising to 4,700 nanograms per liter after the cells were flushed, and the water leaves the fire hot. That hot water matters. Under the Federal Clean Water Act, it is unlawful to discharge any pollutant into waters of the United States without a permit, and Congress defined pollutant to include both chemical wastes and heat itself. Washington law sets stricter standards to protect humans and wildlife. It is unlawful to discharge into any waters of the state any matter that causes or tends to cause pollution on penalty of up to $10,000 per day. Washington's water quality standards set numeric temperature limits to protect salmon. Developing fish embryos begin to die above around 63 degrees Fahrenheit, and discharge plumes are capped to prevent near instant lethality to these young fish. Now consider where this BESS would sit. Snoqualmie Valley drains to the Snoqualmie River, which supports Chinook, Coho, and Steelhead. Water flows across fields into wetlands and into Snoqualmie River. A hot, metal-laden, PFAS-bearing firefighting water discharge in our valley could contaminate the floodplain we are trying to protect. So I ask you to recommend that King County require for any BESS above residential scale engineered secondary containment sized to capture the full volume of firefighting water plus precipitation with treatment to remove heat, fluoride, heavy metals, and PFAS before any discharge.
Thank you.
Thank you. The amount of
Good evening, Chairperson Wooten, Councilmember Cotton and Testman. Thank you for your work. My name is Joe Hannon, and like my neighbors, I have an improvement to suggest for the BESS safety regulations. Councilmember Cotton was right that our fire department needs response plans. I want to go one step earlier to the engineering that determines whether a fire can be fought at all. We urge Snoqualmie to require compliance with Chapter 12 of the International Fire Code as part of its evacuation route plan. We also recommend that Snoqualmie and King County adopt 2 national standards and the updates that are almost continuously issued to them. The first standard is the National Fire Protection Association 855, the standard for the installation of stationary energy storage systems. Our neighbor Heidi introduced this, and I'll say more about it. The second standard is Underwriters Laboratory 9540A, the standard test method for evaluating thermal runaway, fire propagation in battery energy storage systems. These standards matter because a lithium-ion BESS fire is not an ordinary fire. It is thermal runaway, a self-sustaining chemical reaction that reignites, vents flammable and toxic gas, and can explode. In the 2026 edition of NFPA 855, large-scale fire testing is explicitly required to demonstrate that a fire will not spread from one battery unit to the next. The 6th edition of UL 9540A, published this March, adds that the same large-scale fire test to prove non-propagation between units. The 2026 NFPA standard also expects a hazard mitigation analysis by default, requires flammable gas be controlled so it cannot exceed 25% of the lower flammable limit, and requires that the analysis be interpreted by a licensed professional engineer, not by the developer's marketing materials. Our neighbor Jessica recommended independent verification of information presented by BESS builders, and this is among the areas where independence deeply matters to public safety. A UL 9540A test report, a hazard mitigation analysis stamped by a qualified engineer, and an emergency response plan should permit prerequisites, submitted and independently reviewed before the shovel touches the ground. A common failure in these applications, documented by fire protection engineers, is that a BESS developer submits test data for one configuration and then builds a different one. Snoqualmie and King County should require the tested configuration match the installation configuration. We needn't invest a safety standard. The engineers who wrote the regulations already did that work. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Mary
for
Ann.
being so open. Getting ready.
Very intimidated by the lights.
So good.
Good evening, Chairperson Wotton, Councilmember Cotton, and Councilmember Tessman. Thank you each for your work. My name is Georgia North, and like our neighbors, I have an improvement to suggest for best safety regulations. Our neighbor, Invidita, opened by agreeing with the chair that the companies profiting from a BESS should stand behind it through bankruptcy, insurance, maintenance, and decommissioning. I want to turn that principle into a concrete requirement tiered to match the 4 size categories my neighbors James and Sue described. For residential systems under 100 kilowatt hours, the burden should be light, a manufacturer warranty, and standard homeowner coverage. These are the power walls in a garage, and we don't need to smother them in red tape. For commercial systems between 100 kilowatt hours and 1 megawatt hour, the batteries that keep a grocery store cold when PSE fails, the operator should carry liability insurance, scale to the hazard, together with a basic removal plan. For distributed energy resources between 1 and 5 megawatt hours, and for anything above 5 megawatt hours that Sue rightly called high consequence, the requirement should be full financial assurance held by Snoqualmie, the county, and the residents harmed, not a promise from the developer. New York's model BESS law supplies the template. The owner must continuously maintain a fund or bond payable to the local government for removal of the system across the entire life of the facility, with every dollar of the security paid by the applicant. New York's companion law sizes that fund or bond at 125% of the estimated cost of removal and site restoration, with an annual increase reduced only by verified salvage value. The estimate must be prepared by a qualified engineer, not by the company hoping to profit from the BESS. The reason to hold the bonds or funds at Snoqualmie or King County is simple. Jupiter appears to have formed a special purpose entity that may meet the requirements for bankruptcy remoteness under the law. That means that the investment fund that owns the special purpose entity's equity gets to take profits as distributions, but wouldn't be liable were the BESS to burn. If that special purpose entity dissolves, transfers the project, or files for bankruptcy, its promise evaporates. But a bond payable to Snoqualmie or funds posted to King County would not. A decommissioning bond and a liability policy survive the company that posted them. That's the entire point. Families in this valley insure their homes and cars. We're asking only that the 780 megawatt hour experimental chemical facility proposed here be held to the same standard to which we hold ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you much. Anyone else? Georgia.
Good evening, Chairperson Watton, Councilmember Cotton, and Councilmember Tessman. My name is Nicole Wolfley, and like you, I am grateful to be a part of this community. Our neighbors are fantastic, and so are you on the work that you are doing. Thank you for considering tiering best regulations so that safety standards comport with the risk presented as James and Sue described. Thank you for considering a 1,000-foot setback from any home as Nivedita described and a 2-mile setback from any school or daycare facility as Henrika described. We also appreciate your thoughtfulness about some of the overarching standards we should impose on ourselves, require independent data to assess best technologies and sites, and independent testing, monitoring, and public reporting on BESS. As Jessica said, trust but verify could save us all from another industrial tragedy. We think our community and communities across King County deserve independent data for decisions about public safety. As Butch described, we believe everyone deserves evacuation routes that won't be underwater. Please require at least 2 evacuation routes accessible year-round, independently verified by licensed engineers whose clients are the residents relying on those routes. You heard from Joe about the International Fire Code's Chapter 12, which requires mitigation of hazards so residents can evacuate without exposure to toxic gases in concentrations above the immediate dangers to life or health levels. Joe also described NFPA and UL standards that should apply to any proposed BESS, and Heidi asked you for regulations protecting our rivers and groundwater from runoff contamination arising from suppressing BESS fires. Georgia shared community expectations around business standing behind their work with insurance policies sufficient to remediate harms. And Georgia also described the bonds or funds that could be held to escrow by Snoqualmie or King County to help pay the costs of cleaning up BESS fires and out-of-service BESS structures. Snoqualmie and King County strive to be communities safe for all people, all ages and creeds. And we work together to keep sidewalks walkable and playgrounds playable. We safeguard and appreciate our green spaces and forests, and we know that we can work together to craft regulations that keep our communities safe, even from experimental BESS. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, thank you, council members and chair, for caring so much about this, and to my fellow constituents and neighbors, thank you for being here. My name is Katie Crislip. I've lived in Snoqualmie for 11 years, and I'm so grateful to raise my family in such a breathtakingly beautiful place. I work in HR. I've been married for 16 years, and I'm a mom to 2 children, ages 14 and 9. I believe green energy is good. Climate change is real, and we must take action for the sake of our children and future generations. However, this is simply the wrong place for a BESS facility. With battery storage, it's not a question of if it catches fire, but when. A BESS fire would release highly toxic gases capable of causing deep tissue damage and severe lung injuries inflicting lasting health effects on our community. Because these batteries experience an unstoppable chemical chain reaction, fire cannot simply be choked out. It would require an extreme amount of water and could burn for days. Furthermore, I am deeply concerned about evacuation logistical realities, as my neighbors have already conveyed. With our limited roads out of the area, how do we safely evacuate and protect our families? I cannot support a BESS facility built this close to our homes, parks, and schools. I understand that businesses must prioritize profitability, and placing this facility near high voltage transmission lines is a business savvy move. But that financial convenience is not worth the price of our safety, our lives, or our children's lives. This is not the place for BESS. Thank you.
Thank you much. Appreciate it. Next.
Good evening, council members. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak this evening, and thank you for being proactive regarding safety planning in our community. My name is Melody Correa. I am an 18-year Snoqualmie resident, and I'm the PTSA president at Cascade View Elementary School. When I learned that PSE and Jupiter Power wanted to build an industrial battery facility 1/2 mile from my son's school and about 800 feet from Snow King, where he skates 6 days a week, I wanted to know more. Knowing full well just those two facilities alone are responsible for the lives and safety of over 1,000 children on a daily basis. With the emerging technology of BESS, I had a lot of questions, and the more I dug in, the more alarmed I became. A BESS fire is not equivalent to a house fire. It is a chemical fire that does not allow those individuals closest to the fire to evacuate. It requires a shelter in place. So let's talk about shelter in place. When there is a hazardous event nearby, the standard emergency protocol is to shelter in place. Close the windows, turn off the ventilation, keep the kids inside until the air is safe. Here's the problem. Standard HVAC found in homes, schools, and most businesses cannot filter out the toxins and chemicals these batteries can produce. There are no sealed filtering environments for the kids to retreat to. With no air conditioning, my son sits inside a classroom with open windows much of the year. If a lithium-ion battery fire releases a toxic plume on a typical school day, August through October or March through June, our kids are sitting in rooms with open windows. In the winter, there's still not adequate filtration to protect the air they're breathing. A shelter-in-place protocol assumes infrastructure our schools and facilities do not have, and the burden to plan and protect them will fall on the school district and businesses who serve our children. So what's the alternative? Evacuation? Load hundreds of children onto buses and get them out of the valley, but where? On what roads? Through what traffic? During an emergency that has already triggered evacuations for thousands of nearby residents? There is no evacuation plan for our schools that accounts for a BESS fire. I want to be clear. I am not saying this to scare you. I am saying this because these are the questions that need to be answered before any permit is issued, not after.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Peggy Shepard, and I live on Snoqualmie Ridge. BESS is still not safe. There's a misrepresentation frequently referencing the Electric Power Research Institute, EPRI, that BESS technology is safer now. EPRI is the research arm of power industry. They keep a database of failures. Their own data shows approximately 87 failures since the first utility scale BESS was installed less than 13 years ago. The majority of these have happened since 21, about 1 failure per month. An important caveat to the EPRI failure data, their database mostly tracks fires that have received media attention, so it understates the incidence of fires. Media coverage is an imperfect metric because the media often has other issues to cover that might preclude coverage of a fire, particularly in remote areas. A team of energy experts, researchers, statisticians were engaged to review EPRI data, and they found that EPRI charts is misleading for a number of reasons. For one, the chart relies upon media coverage to track failures, so the failure rates it presents are understated. According to the expert review, the bigger the facility, the more likely the failure. The review charts shows that a 500 megawatt hour facility will fail every 9.2 years. Currently, the website for the anticipated best facility proposal is 130 megawatts, which can last 4 hours. Megawatt hours equals megawatts times hours. Therefore, the proposed Snoqualmie best facility is proposing a 520 megawatt hour facility, 130 times 4. The previous withdrawn application was between 3 to 4 times that size. What keeps the facility from being enlarged? The larger the megawatt hours, the more frequently a facility fails. If the facility would have proceeded as originally requested, the failure frequency would have been every 3 years for 1.5 gigawatt hours. It should be assumed that best technology with lithium has improved to the point. It should not be assumed that best technology with lithium has improved to the point that it is safe. It is not. If the technology becomes demonstrably safe, then prove it. LFP batteries aren't as safe as you think. Water. Otay Mesa fire. Okay, I got way too much to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it. If you have documents that you'd like to share, please do so.
There are many links in this. Is there a way that this can go to the site where we are all allowed to see what each other's saying about this?
I do not control that part, but I will note your question.
Because you're going to be missing about half of it without
Okay.
that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Peggy. Appreciate it.
My name is John Schrader. I'm also a Snoqualmie resident. First thing I want to say is, a few months back, I think we all sat here and we were unbelievably frustrated with the progress of council. And I think that over the course of the last few months, we have seen things turn in a positive direction that is really wonderful. We may not have 100% of the council that we need, but we have the majority that we need to get things done. The working group that's been established, the $500,000 that's been put forth, the ordinance that you're proposing here at this point are all fantastic advancements. So we appreciate you leaning in and doing that. Thank you. The ordinance is really good. I have no idea, having just seen it tonight, whether or not it's got teeth and how it'd be held, how it can actually impact this whole thing. But what it brings to light in my mind is the insufficiency of what King County put forth. I think King County has done us an absolute disservice when you write an ordinance that has a $1 million liability cap, and you've talked about everything that we've talked about tonight. Those reparations don't come for free. Tens of millions of dollars if this thing fails, that will sit with us. King County wrote an ordinance that gives the permitting department the belief that somebody did actual diligence to write that ordinance and thinks it's sufficient. It's not. And so we're going to have to do something else about that. God willing, Council Member Perry comes to her senses and helps fight for that at the county level too as well, but I doubt it. The intersection of emerging and yet nearly obsolete technology is a really crazy place. We have an emergent and yet unstable battery technology that we know burns on a fairly consistent and frequent basis. And yet, if you look at it over the course of the next 5 years, I would bet that lithium ion in itself will be replaced by other battery chemistries that are safer, less toxic, and more performant. Why are we going to invest now in this place in something that is going to put us all at risk and all in danger? The answer is pretty simple, to be completely honest. It's a profit grab. None of this is here to support us. The stability of the infrastructure, the stability of our grid is not really what's driving it. Jupiter and BlackRock are not here to do us a favor. They're here to resell energy and make a profit. That's why it's being pushed right now, and that's why we have every right to push back on it. The last thing I'll say is that in the overall scheme of things, when you talk about liability, $1 million won't cover anything. If you look at Ferrucci Junior High, and that was a lead ion battery. It was a simple UPS system, the scale of which is maybe, 4 orders of magnitude less than what's being proposed to be put in here. And yet you're talking about tens of millions of dollars in what was contained within a building. now you talk about unleashing this across all of the wetlands that we have here. It's probably unrepairable, but if it is, it's in the order of tens to 50, $100 million. I appreciate the ordinance. Well put together. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay, one more call for other testimony. If you have things that you'd like to share, please send those over to the city clerk or to myself, and we'll make sure that that gets included as we do the consideration moving forward. And with that, I'm going to close the public comment period. We've got a couple quick things that we need to take care of as a committee. Appreciate all of those that showed up tonight. This is the beginning of a process, and we just did not want to delay it. And if you did not get a copy of the ordinance, there's extra copies here. Otherwise, watch, because we'll be disseminating that at some point through the city. So with that, move on to the approval of the minutes dated June 15th, 2026. We have a motion and a second.
So moved.
With the amendment to add in
The notes that I believe came from me, right? Okay,
yeah.
we will do that. If there's no objection, we will approve the minutes as amended. And that's with the first from Councilmember Tessman and second from Councilmember Cotton. And that brings up our police chief. Hang out if you'd like. This should not take too long, but it's rudimentary that we go through some of this stuff. Chief Haracy.
Good evening, council members. 2 weeks ago, we discussed this topic, so I should be able to get through this pretty quickly. Back in 2002, the Coalition of Small Police Agencies was created, including the cities of Algona, Black Diamond, Clyde Hill, Duval, Enumclaw, Issaquah, Lake Forest Park, Medina, Mercer Island, Normandy Park, Pacific, and us. The University of Washington Police Department has sought to join the coalition, and all the police chiefs have met. We've talked to our attorneys and things like that, respectively. And before you as an agenda bill to bring them in, we're looking at a 1-year trial period. They are looking at adding resources, their training facility, detectives to our major crimes task force, and a number of other just resources that not only we provide as a coalition to each other, but they would then be bringing those assets to us as well. So that's kind of the gist of it. And we've already kind of discussed this 2 weeks ago, so I will leave it in your hands on whether or not we take this forward next week.
Any comment or objection to moving this forward to next week's agenda?
No objections. Like we discussed last time, I think it'd be great to have an additional partner in the coalition, and yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
Since there's no budgetary impacts on this, can we move it forward on the consent agenda, or does the chief want to do another presentation?
That's your call.
Yeah, we could put it on consent if there's no objection to it.
I would support that.
Okay, to the consent agenda then. Thank you much, Chief.
We'll let Kim know that for her process.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, thank you much, Chief. I'm going to keep my comments short. Tonight was the opportunity for community input. This is not something that we necessarily need to act on tonight as the ordinance, unless you feel like we need to. I think there was some very good input that we got beyond just kind of the framework, but I want to open it up for discussion from Councilmember Cotton and Councilmember Tessman.
I would definitely like to bring the discussion forward with some of the information provided to council, whether we act on it at the next meeting, but at least bring, like I say, the information forward for our discussions that we've been routinely having, and make that available to the other council members as well.
Councilmember Tessman?
Yeah, Chair. So just I really want to point out your leadership on this topic. It's just been incredible from the beginning. The research you've done with or without Claude has been spectacular. So I appreciate it. Intent wise, this would obviously set the city's requirements for any best facility, and it would be for the public's benefit and to confirm my understanding, the real strength of getting this ordinance through would be during any annexation discussion, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's great. And also for annexation and as another tool to influence changes to King County's ordinance, right? So we can say, hey, there is a municipality within King County that does have, competitive standards. So King County, you need to work a little bit harder. Okay, so that's great. Thanks and thank you for confirming my understanding. I think to echo Councilmember Cotton's point, I think as with most of the best stuff, my priority is speed. I think this is called the 90% solution. I think we'll get the other 10% in full council. So I definitely support getting that in front of the whole council as soon as possible. I think what I'm walking away from today with the 1,000-foot buffer from the nearest residential parcel, proposed 2-mile separation from schools and daycares, childcare facilities, the noise level requirements, I think that's a gap. So I would want to work to close that gap in the proposed ordinance. Obviously, incorporation of this already includes a discussion on assurance requirements and verification requirements. So I think based off of the comments today, we can just look to see if there are any opportunities to strengthen that. But they're already in there to a certain degree, so that's great. I don't think the conversation so far considered any potential negative impact on systems like the Powerwall. And so I hear the community that a concern. I'm not sure how prevalent they are, but they are a pretty popular, especially with our power loss in the region in the winter. So message received on that. I think we can adjust the tiers accordingly. Yes, so that's what I'm walking away with, and those are my initial thoughts. Oh, the only other gap I'm sure will come up in the full council discussion, presumably from Councilmember Holloway, will be some sort of requirement on non-water, probably like a nitrogen gas-based response, and requiring that suppression system for any best facilities in the city.
Councilmember Cotton, thank you.
Yes,
Councilmember Tesman.
has there been any feedback? I know this particular version of the ordinance was presented to the administration several weeks ago and by yourself. And so has legal had a chance to review, or has the administration weighed in as far as this?
Yes. So it was submitted on the 23rd of June, and just keep in mind, we're limited in resources, the city. The mayor and I spoke briefly before the meeting tonight. He's very favorable to what we are proposing. There are a couple tweaks. I think the one thing that we do need to distinguish, this is primarily written for industrial size BESS. We've got two other things. Residents have this in their home, and we need to consider that so that it's not onerous on people doing responsible things. And secondly, it was brought up tonight, and that's businesses, particularly small businesses, but even larger businesses that rely on battery storage, that sort of thing, for power outages. So we do need to address it. So the question back to my colleagues is, we could go one of two ways. I could include this as a discussion point under committee reports and give everybody an opportunity to see this. Or secondly, if we want to move forward, we can pass it out as is and with 2 readings, go to the council with the recommendation, and then know that we can come back in 2 weeks, refine this, and then have a second reading. So it just, how fast do we move? And I want to make sure that we get as much input. And tonight, thank you again for everyone who's shown up on FIFA night, and we're all anxious to get home and watch the game. So direction from Councilmember Cotton and Tessman? Which way would you like to go?
I would like to move forward quickly as Councilmember Tessman has brought forward, but we need to also verify and see what, additional things that we can add to this. It's not an all-inclusive, but it definitely is addressing the issues as far as mitigations. And I will continue to follow up on the evacuation routes and feed the dog with the bone.
Okay. Councilmember.
Procedurally, if we were to go the latter route, we do the first reading. Presumably there are no amendments between the first reading and the second reading, or those are still possible?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It can be amended.
Okay.
So
So we don't
first and
lose.
second readings, both.
Okay. And were it to be amended, that doesn't require like a third reading, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
So the final form doesn't need to be read twice, I guess, is the core of my question.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If that's the case, then I'm in favor of the latter. Had that not been the case, I would say we do have the moratorium. This is essentially exactly what the moratorium's for, right? To get this stuff right. But given it's in such a good state already, we have really good feedback from the public. We know where we need to adjust. I'm comfortable going to a first reading, making those adjustments and getting it behind us.
And we will be obviously discussing at the working group.
Right. Okay. Councilmember Cotton, official vote then is to put this on for first reading as presented tonight, and knowing that we can amend it, we can be back here in 2 weeks and do further review, especially at the direction of the council. And that'll allow the community to have still more input on it as we work our way through.
Sounds
So,
great.
okay, by unanimous vote, we have adopted the ordinance for its first reading, and we will pass that on to tomorrow night's F&A committee. We do have items that are on the agenda.
One last thing.
Yes.
Again, to echo what Councilmember Tessman said, thank you, Chair Watton, for all your hard work and passion about this subject, and especially improving the county's ordinance, because I know what your ultimate goal is too.
Thank you very much. All right. With that, is there a motion to adjourn for this evening?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We stand adjourned at 6:01 p.m. Thank you much for being here.